Like I said, I'm going to give a brief overview to 100 Families. Restore Hope, I have to introduce 100 Families. I first have to introduce Restore Hope. So Restore Hope was created, it's an initiative of Governor Hutchinson, created in 2016. At that time, Governor Hutchinson recognized the need for a collaborative approach to helping families in our communities across Arkansas. He recognized that in communities across the state, there were so many amazing government agencies, organizations, nonprofits, like all of you who are doing such good work in the communities, but that for the most part, those organizations were working in silos, working, maybe partnering with a couple other agencies, but at that time, there was not a community-wide partnership to helping individuals and families in the communities. And so that is why he created Restore Hope, to try to solve that problem, to bring a collective impact model, which is all these organizations working together, to bring that model to Arkansas communities. And so out of that came the 100 Families Initiative, which is a community-driven initiative. 100 Families does not belong to any one organization. It doesn't belong to Restore Hope. Restore Hope is the backbone organization, which just means that we provide kind of the back-end organization to keep it running, but ultimately it is driven by the community providers, by all of you who are a part of it. This graphic here just gives you an idea of what our goal is. So that blue arrow up top is kind of what the organizations look like when they're siloed, all moving in generally the same direction, but having kind of struggling to move as far as they could because communication and issues of working in silos and not working all together. So down below you can see that's what we hope it will look like when all of those organizations align, and ultimately that will result in better community outcomes, more effective services for the clients that we all serve. So this next graphic gives an overview for all of you of the types of organizations that are involved in 100 Families across the state. And this is not comprehensive, but I just like to share this to show that it is cross-sector. Government, social services, the business sector, all of these have a role to play in the 100 Families Initiative. Hopefully you will see you may be listed on here or an organization such as yours. But truly the 100 Families Initiative is for any organization or individual who simply wants to be a part of it and wants to help families in their community move from crisis to stability to thriving, wants their community ultimately to thrive. And ultimately, if they want that, then they have something to give. And so they are welcomed in. So it's truly for anyone. But of course, most of you on this call work directly with those individuals. You obviously have a role to play in this initiative. So this next slide gives the first overview. I'll have one more slide to overview this, of the 100 Families model. Now I've kind of overviewed what 100 Families is. It's a collaborative approach to serving families in communities across Arkansas. It involves every organization that wants to be a part of it. And then what I'm moving into now is how we actually serve clients. Of course, my background's in social work. Many of you work directly with individuals. To me, that's what really matters. Without serving clients, we're not going to have the outcomes that we want. And so we're going to spend most of the rest of the time talking about our model and approach to serving the individuals that are in need in our communities. Our target client are individuals in crisis. That's not to say that we wouldn't work with an individual that's, not necessarily in crisis, but just struggling. They do have to be a parent of a child under 18 years of age, but doesn't have to be a custodial parent. So they can be a non-custodial parent who, the child can be in the home with their mom and, we're working with the dad or with grandparents. So as long as they have legal rights to a child under the age of 18, we can work with them. And then there are some financial requirements, but that we very rarely have to turn anyone away for making too much money. With that said, so those individuals and families are the ones that we target to serve. And what we do is we actually have case managers who work for 100 families and also work for other community organizations. We know, and I know that most of you on this call know, that clients that are in crisis are going to often tend to struggle to reach out for help or to even know where to begin. And so for that reason, we target specific places where individuals go if they tend to be in crisis. Juvenile and district courts. Oftentimes, if an individual's in one of those, they're in crisis in some area. Same with DCFS and ACC. Homeless shelters is also a good example of this. And then schools, which I know we have some of those on here today. These are all examples of places that we specifically place case managers and target to onboard clients. And that's not to say that clients can't be referred to us from different places. We'll take clients from anywhere, but our model is that we do the best we can to go to meet clients where they are, rather than expecting them to come find us. So that's an essential aspect of our model. And then from there, at that initial meeting, the case manager does a 13-point assessment. So I mentioned earlier on that the 100 Families program is holistic. When we say that, we mean that our clients are assessed and served in every area of their life. And we have 13 different areas that we specifically ask clients about, and I'll overview them here in a few minutes when we get into the case management system. We assess clients in all of those areas because we recognize how interrelated they all are, and how important it is to assess all areas to target the underlying cause of a struggle. And so 5 of the areas are listed here: education, housing, recovery, employment, and transportation. Those are just 5 of the 13 areas that we assess clients in, but those are 5 of the top ones that often we see clients in crisis. And so that's why they're specifically pointed out here. But at that point, once we've assessed clients, we'll target 3 to 4 areas where we need to immediately start working. And on average, clients that we see are in crisis in 3 areas when we meet them. So we will first start with those, 3 areas that are their most immediate concern, and then go forward from there. But we know that we have to focus on all of the areas that they are in crisis in. Just give an example of this. Let's take the areas of housing, recovery, and employment. So those are 3 areas where we very often see clients in crisis in. Well, if our case manager had only addressed the areas of recovery or employment, and not even, talked to the client about the area of housing, we all see what would have happened then. Ultimately, if we do not address and look at all areas that a client is struggling in, they're ultimately, we can help them with whatever we're going to help them with, but they're ultimately going to be at risk for moving back into crisis if they remain in crisis in any area. So say we had gotten the client connected to treatment and gotten them a job. Well, that would have been amazing in and of itself. However, if we still failed to address that area of housing, they are obviously, if they remain homeless, going to be at risk for relapsing and at risk for losing their jobs. It's all connected. And so we train our case managers to address all of these areas. And then from there, clients are served by the whole community, not just one agency. And that brings me to my next slide. So this kind of outlines the 3 different stages of our 100 Families model. So I already overviewed the contact stage, which is when we meet that client at that point of contact and do the 13-point assessment. So at that point, when we recognize that the client's 3 top areas of crisis are housing, recovery, and employment, well, the case manager is not an expert in all 3 of those areas. So that's why we need all of you, because you all are the people that the case manager is going to refer clients to address their areas of need. That initial appointment, that case manager is automatically right away going to get them connected to some sort of substance abuse treatment. You're also going to get them connected to some type of housing agency. So whether that's a homeless shelter temporarily, whether that's a housing agency, whatever that may be, that's a connection that the case manager is going to make. Similarly with employment, they're going to start getting that client connected to some type of organization that does, resume assistance, job skill training, those sorts of things. And so our case managers are not experts in all of these areas. And so that's where all of these community providers come in. And so at that point, the case manager has already put the client into the case management system and would add all of you or the providers that they pinpoint to refer clients to the client's care team and send you a message explaining why you were added to the client's care team and specifically what that client's needs are as it relates to you. And then the client moves into the second stage, which we call the connection stage. And the goal in the connection stage is to move clients to stability. So you all may have heard that our slogan in 100 Families is moving clients from crisis to career, but we recognize that it's not that easy, right? So a client, an individual or a family doesn't just move from crisis to career. There are lots of steps and stages there in between. So that whole middle stage is represented by what we call the connection stage. And our goal in that stage is just to get the client stable. And sometimes that takes a while. So at this point, clients are served holistically by multiple different providers that are focusing on a certain area of that client's, that client is in need. And then clients are regularly reassessed by the case manager. And the case manager, of course, is following up with the client regularly to make sure they're engaged with their service providers that they've referred them to, that they're progressing, that they're getting the help that they need, that they're showing up to their appointment. But then the case manager also regularly reassesses clients to ensure that they are moving forward in those areas. So say after 2 or 3 months, the case manager does another assessment on the client and the client is doing a lot better in housing, they have stable housing, we can maybe move from focusing on the area of housing to focusing on the area of education. So that's kind of the case manager's role, is to continuously reassess where the client is and make additional connections based on their situation at that point. Of course, all of our goal for our clients is that their situation would change. And so therefore we need to continuously be monitoring how their situation is changing and adapting to that. Once clients are, stable in all 13 areas, we move into what we call the career stage. And what I always point out here is that we call it the career stage, but we recognize that doesn't fit for every client. Not every client is going to get into a career or has the goal of getting into a career. Generally, though, this stage is our goals with the clients, or common client goals in this stage, are financial independence and overall health and well-being. But a lot of clients in this stage choose to earn a technical certificate or a degree, and 100 Families is constantly working to increase the amount of opportunities we have for further training for clients that are wanting to pursue a different career option. So this next slide shows you all some of our data. And this is, if you've ever been to an Alliance meeting, you've seen data. So you know how much data, how important we view data. So of course, to make sure that the program is working, that we as a community are doing good work and, serving the clients well, we can constantly have to look at the numbers, look at data. So every month in our Alliance meetings, we present some form of data, and it may not always look like this, but it often will. And just to give you an overview of what this is. So the top graph is representing clients at intake. So 100 Families clients when we met them. And then the bottom graph represents 100 Families clients as of whatever date we're presenting this data. But this data, I like to point out, all of the clients represented in this data were active clients. So they were not clients that, we had worked with but then stopped. These were all active clients at the time, and they all had been a part of the program for different periods of time, anywhere from a year to a month. But even still, you're able to see the improvements that were made through the community, all working together and streamlining services that exist for clients. So one service that comes with every client enrolled in 100 Families, in addition to the collaborative care, is what we call the court resolution team. So of course, targeting clients who are justice involved, one thing that we found is that a high percentage of them have a suspension on their driver's license, which is oftentimes an indicator that they have an outstanding warrant, which of course is a red flag for them being in crisis in legal. And so that's something, of course, that in my experience with clients, a lot of them would rather forget about and avoid, but it is such an important thing to address because at any point they could get pulled over, they could get taken to jail, and if they've gotten a job, if they've gotten their kids back, if they get taken to jail, they could lose everything that they've worked for. And so we try as quickly as possible to start to address those outstanding court issues. So that's an automatic service for every client. In your breakout groups, you're going to talk about how you all refer clients in. I know that I've talked a lot about how we refer clients to you to receive your services, but you all are also highly encouraged to refer clients in. And even when you refer clients in, we will also add you to the care team so that you can have any updates on that client, and you can still post updates, because oftentimes you may still be working with that client after you've referred them to us. Quickly after that, we're going to start working on the court resolution issues because that's something that we've just seen as such a huge issue, but something that there wasn't really an organization out there addressing it on a large scale. And so we have a court resolution team who has access to the driver control database to look up the license status for every client. And also they call every single court specifically to ask about a client. If there is a suspension from that court, they'll call directly and find out, what's the suspension for, what does the individual need to do to get this resolved, things like that. And then they will follow up and be a support for the client until the client's license is reinstated. To overview the process, the case manager, of course, completes intake with a client. At this point, the case manager will make referrals based on the client's areas of need, and those referrals will be made to all of you. And you will be added to a client's profile in the HopeArc system. And these are some of the reasons it's so important to use the case management system to communicate and update clients' progress. It ensures that all service providers are informed of the client's progress and needs. It moves us from having to communicate over email to try to hunt each other down by phone. It really streamlines all of the information, all of the updates on clients, and puts it into one centralized location. It allows case managers to also prioritize crisis interventions with clients in need. So if you have a client that you're working with and they're not showing up to their appointments or they're not doing what they're supposed to do, if you immediately post in the client's profile letting the case manager know, they will be able to reach out to that client right away. So it just speeds up the process of getting help to these individuals. And then also it just makes it a lot easier to report on clients' progress to the entities that essentially are going to collect this information anyway. A lot of our clients are court, ACC, and DCFS involved. Having all of the information in one streamlined place also just saves time for everyone involved. And it ultimately just allows us to better serve clients to ensure that they are not receiving the same service from, multiple different providers. We just want to implement a more effective and efficient model for providing services to clients.